their skin which remained black as they were closer to the sun. Now, we are concentrated on this group that migrated southwards. Amongst those group, it was us, the Nguni tribe, which migrated eastward as opposed to the westward direction, which produced the Batswana and the other Amangwato and other tribes there. But we are descendants of the group that migrated eastwards, which soon found itself around the Telakwa Bay, where they lived on fishing and gathering fruits and other things. And they are reported to have decided to climb the mountains and sort of descended the mountains as they are commonly known with Sibeta Congo by the. Now this is where the madness begins. This is where the confusion begins. As a Shongwe, I could not have been there in that group. He could have been there. She could have not have been there. Now, this is very, very, very critical. The time factor. One clan goes down Shiselwe, and we are told around the 1400 there were those disturbances which history describes as pushing and crushing them fatal, so-called. Now, after those disturbances, we see one group migrating northwards. They first settled around Emmanuel's place, where they fled again to Pungalekazi, once again fled to Pungalekazi, from Pungalekazi to Kundvi, where they migrated to, where they are found today, around the hot springs that never dried. This is the story. This is the story. If you were told about the story of Jesus Christ from birth to death, why can't you know your own story? Who are we? Now, fast forward, Comrade. There are two factors that affect us all here. This is the nation building period and the colonialism period. These are two issues which we must understand how Swaziland becomes Swaziland under these groupings. And at the same time, while the nation was built, the white colonial masters comes in. And just the reason why, Comrade, we must know this, it is because we are now faced with a situation where a certain section of the Swazi nation claims ownership of this land. And you must be able to stand up, Comrade, and say, no, this is not your land. This is our land, Comrade. You know, it is very, 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 very problematic when somebody stands up, Comrade Emmanuel, and says, when I come to heaven, I will say, I told you. This is what King Sokuza believed, and this is what our leadership believes. They believe they are enslaving us on behalf of God. They believe they were sent here as much as the children of Israel migrated from Egypt to present day Palestine, where they do not belong there as well. You see, Comrade, unless we understand the ownership of this land, we will continue to behave as if asking for democracy, people are doing us favor. No, Comrade, people are not doing us favor. When you stand up to say you want to elect a government of your choice, that is your right. Because there shouldn't be anyone outside these clans I've mentioned who should own ownership of the other. Here we have three clans. Emakhanzambili, Bemtsaba, Emafigamuva. They come together and form the Swazi nation. After that, they are colonized. After colonization, they are given independence. Who then, amongst these groupings, could stand up and say, this independence constitution is unworkable? That is, in my parting short, Comrade Emmanuel, that fast forward everything, we have one grouping of people who claim ownership of this land. They go to the extent of repealing 1968 constitution because they claim they own this land. Those of you who listened when I encountered that dragon in the pool scene will remember how it does not know how it happens. The 1973 King's Decree. It does not know that it was in the same day when Parliament was sitting and the Spire was sitting that the Constitution was appealed. Now, in conclusion, Comrade Chair, I will appeal to each and every one of us to take leave and understand our background, understand where we come from. And it will be only then that we will be able to say, no. We are tired of standing on the touchline, clapping hands to a game we should be part of. In Swaziland, we are part to a game which we are spectators to a game we should be playing. Who else should be in Parliament? Without me, without him, without you. Here we are. We are putting the cart before the horse. We know, everybody knows. We need to start with the dialogue and then the elections. Simply because there are issues that we need to deal with in the dialogue that have bearing in the election. Comrade Emmanuel, although I have just crossed the line that is your field, I say to Comrade, let me invite you into thinking about this issue. If we don't know our background, if we don't know where we come from, we will have a problem in knowing where we are going to. Thank you very much.
Am I taking on? Thank you, Comrade Mphandlana, victim, my schoolmate, for the opportunity and for your plea for us to reconnect with our past in order to inform our future. Thank you very much for that. May I observe all protocol and thank SUDF for the opportunity to think aloud. I want to begin from, I wish I had a projector so that I share my slide with you, but I just want I want to begin by just bringing to your attention some of the national statistics, just to appreciate where we are as a country in terms of who we are and what defines us in socio-economic terms. we are a population of 1,130,042. In terms of ages, from 0 to 14, they are 36.16%. 15 to 64, 63.88%. 65 and above, just a mere 3.9%. You can tell that we don't live longer. We're not like in Europe, where the older generation is now forming the bulk of that society. Median age, we're a very young population of 23.7. So that defines us. Young people are really the heartbeat of this nation. Our GDP is $10.56 billion, but we sit on poverty level that is official from government, which may be higher than that, of around 60%, which is, according to their latest statistics, is 58.9, which is around 60% of people living below poverty datum line. In terms of Gini efficiency, which defines equality in society, we're at 54.6, one of the most unequal societies in the world. Of course, the first one being South Africa, Namibia, and ourselves. We sit on a youth unemployment of 50.1%. We are 90% Christians, 24.8% are urbanized, then the rest of us are in the rural areas. In terms of maternal mortality, 437. In fact, the figures now are in excess of 500 women. 500 of 100,000 women die giving birth. Infant mortality, 38.12 per thousand, which means 38.12%, 38 children in 1,000 don't see the day of light, they die. Life expectancy, it has increased now to 60.22. In the past few years, with AIDS, we're around 40s, of which 62.17 are women, 62.33 are men. The difference is very small. We are a country that is classified as middle income, but the statistics point to the contrary. As we have seen, the GDP is very high. It's supposed to have money. I'm not even surprised that your king has been party to a meeting where we don't belong. Least developed countries, there are 46 in the world. But he decides to attend that particular meeting, coming from a middle income country. It's an irony. The real struggle in Swaziland, ladies and gentlemen, the real people's struggles are defined as follows. The health system that is in a state of collapse, no drugs, no medicines. Where the shortages have become a norm than an exception. Abase two Igbo minutes. We would see our road infrastructure, we are all witnesses to that. Even in the peri-urban, like the schools have got no food supplies. And children from poor backgrounds who depend on this meal are suffering immensely. The corruption that has become the norm in our country. Brutality of the state security, which has reached unprecedented levels. And now we have emergence of mob justice because the justice system has broken down and people have got no confidence in the justice system anymore. Protests are denied by a mere word from a minister. Everything is out. All of this point to a governance failure. where parliament is ineffective, erosion in trusting the justice system, and by and large, the executive, which is the cabinet, that is unaccountable to anyone but themselves. So in terms of the critical issues that we need to think about in terms of going forward, we need to be mobilizing the broader society to be active players in the change that we want. Because the equal wealth of all people and the right to dignity is fundamental and non-negotiable. Human rights and development is a goal and a means to human development. It is just not the inadequate socio-economic development and security in this country that we are facing. It is the lack of political power at individual level and inability of citizens to influence decisions that matter in their lives. We are not influencing decisions. So addressing oppression is at the center of marching forward to full freedom for all Maswati. The statistics that I have shared above points to a structural factors that define our situation in this country. Let us note that democracy and human rights is the only system that protects and assures people of their freedom. To this end, Swazis need the revival of hope that democracy we want will usher a new political order where dignity of Liswati will be assured. However, we need to be honest as well, comrades, that democracy is not an end in itself. It requires vigilance. It requires active citizenship. It requires hard work for freedom to lead us to a better life for all. It requires transformational, ethical, and servant leaders. It requires political and civil society organizations that will be people-centric. It requires strong governance institutions underpinned by the rule of law. Swazis must know that development takes place where people have direct access to the tools for development, where people enjoy freedom, forces of social change get unleashed. Democratic governments listen to the people. Democracy fosters tolerance to criticisms and are open to new ideas. In this country, it is a crime to criticize this government. It is a crime to criticize this king. Right-based approach facilitates people's participation, non-discrimination, public access, and transparency. I have picked some critical points from Paul Freire, who teaches us how to go about mobilizing society. He says, oppression is internal, but can also be internalized as a state of false consciousness, where the oppressed house the oppressor in themselves, creating an authentic self. You know, when you sit in an oppressive environment like ours, many a times we are paralyzed by just thinking about the monarch, the police, the military. All these people, they cloud your emotions because you have internalized the oppression that comes from the system. The oppressor want the oppressed to be docile, passive, self-deprecating, and afraid of freedom. That is their own, the main agenda. As you can see them when they are Klane or they are wherever they are, Babutsene Kona, all they want, those people that are there to glorify them, to say, you are perfect. Some of them have even been saying, uhambile, wayostingelela wena kunene, bekawutingelani kumave laphuile. But because people have now internalized their oppression they've become docile, passive, and they are afraid of freedom. Authentic self understand the true purpose in life. If you are authentic about yourself, that is to be free. The oppressed need to realize what is possible in the midst of the limiting conditions that we are facing. We, the oppressed, we need to realize that there is something for us if there is change. Only humans have critical thinking. We're not like animals. Fortunately, we are humans. That's why we're here to share ideas, so that we can open our minds and try to peel off, this oppressive, mindset that is engulfing us today. Humans understand limiting factors, and all humans desire to be free. Swazis are not different, ladies and gentlemen. Humans are capable of critical consciousness. Freire sees oppression not as a permanent feature. It's transient. If you look at all societies that have been oppressed, everything is transient. Who would have known that apartheid will fall one day and South Africans will be free? Desire to become more human transcends limits. Either man gets trapped in oppression or can advance his quest for overcoming those limitations. Humans don't perceive history, they make it. So we are the people who should make our own history. And humanity are transformers. These are some of the views that I picked from Freire. And he suggests also that oppressors will not give in easily. They violently resist by deploying every means to the opponents. He referred to oppressors as sadistic. I read one day, Good Times of Swaziland, Alpheus is saying a government now is going to refer to a menu of actions using money, using state security, using every means possible to make sure that we as a society conform. That is the nature of the state that is oppressive. It never listens. Because when petitions were delivered, they were supposed to listen. They never listened. They closed their ears. Now people are in jail all over the show. Only the oppressed can bring change. They say violence is initiated by those who oppress, exploit, and those who fail to recognize others as humans. This is the sad part that Comrade was speaking about. That we have a class of human beings, fellow human beings like me and you. Human beings who go to a toilet like me and you. Human beings who get sick like me and you. But now they see themselves as godly and we as trash. It is not the tyrannized who initiate despotism, but tyrants themselves. We can't blame ourselves because we get the system ensures that we are afraid. So it is not us who make them despots, but it is themselves who want to secure their comfort zones. He describes revolution by the oppressed as the act of love that opposes lovelessness of oppressors. So if you are engaged in a struggle for change, it is an act of love. You love yourself and you love your people. So I'm now going to make a few proposals going forward. What do we need to do as we tackle the issue of oppression in our country? The first one that I want to suggest, we must build our own institutions. We need to build strong political and civic organizations, institutions that will be accountable, that will listen to the people, that will be servant of the people, that will be ethical, that will be democratic. We've witnessed a party engaged in a democratic process. That is where it all starts. At micro level, that's where democracy should start. And it will grow into a big tree because all of us, we are behaving in that particular fashion. We can't be in a struggle where we have institutions that are not accountable, that are not democratic, that are not people-centric. We need to start there because oppression is not just done by those up there. We can also do it amongst ourselves. We need unity amongst democratic forces, appreciating that we are not homogeneous, and hence we will differ in strategy and tactics. The regime in this country has been over the moon rejoicing when we are bickering amongst ourselves. I remember I wrote an article and I said, people are confusing things. In a multi-party system, there is a lot of noise because it's an open space. We differ openly and we challenge each other, but it's not bad on itself. Here in your system, as Ndlangamandla, you have one man who carries the whip. Anyone who crosses his path is out or is killed. So in democracy, that is what is happening. The noise that we hear amongst ourselves as political actors is not because we hate each other. It's part of the game of being in an open system. We need to develop democratic and human rights values. We must walk the talk. Respect each other's rights. The society out there, they want to see us. They are looking at you and me as role models. And they want to believe that these are the people who are taking us from Egypt to Canaan. And I don't believe Moses, when he was taking them there, he looked like Pharaoh. He was different. He looked like the oppressed himself. We need to center social inclusion, where women, children, youth, disabled, LGBTI communities, they must be an integral part of our struggle. They must see themselves in us because we talk about their issues on a day-to-day basis. We need to develop tools to guide our foot soldiers as they educate masses about the Swaziland we want. Let's not go there and sing with different hymn books. Let us have some curriculum, some guidance, so that when we go there, our foot soldiers are out there educating people. They should have confidence that they are well guided to do that. We need to build, the second point, we need to build the critical mass. There will be no change without the Swazis themselves being part of that change. We need to educate the Maswati. What is a political party system vis-a-vis the current system? Why elections are not, these elections, for example, are just as useless because they're not serving the people. Unfortunately, they are being, supported even by big countries who have democracies themselves. They're saying, oh, go to elections first and then dialogue later. But Maswati must understand, why are we saying these elections are not good for them? They will not yield in any result. I was listening from last week, these MPs who like to tap themselves. The only thing that they will do is they will shout in parliament. But what will be the change? Myself, I'm looking for change. That after they have videotaped themselves, what happens? They are just like me and Dudu, activists. After that, the people that make decisions in parliament and in cabinet will continue to take those decisions. We need to share the failures of the system since 1973, backed by evidence. Locate our struggling in the day-to-day struggles of the people. For me, I always want to talk about, because sometimes in Maswati, in our politics, I understand. But when I talk about issues of water, issues of the clinics, anti-venom, insulin, these are the issues that they will understand. Which the system here to basic in human life. We need to develop the people, with people's views, the Swaziland we want document. I'm not sure, maybe I'm lost, but do we have now that particular document, like the Freedom Charter that they have in South Africa? The Swaziland we want, defined by the voices of the people all across the country, across walks of life, where people have made their views, that this is the Swaziland I want. We need to build the people's power at Sikotsi, chiefdom, and all over the country, where we have the critical mass of Emaswati, ordinary people, Bemajob, who understand that they are oppressed and they want to be free. We want to develop a cadre like people, like what Steve Biko said. I am going to be me as I am. You can beat me, you can jail me, you can kill me, but I am not what is going to be what you want me to be. I want to be me. Whatever you do to me, I will be me. That's what Steve Biko said. The other pillar that I want to suggest is the international solidarity pillar. We need to understand that the geopolitics, locates our possibility to build alliances by understanding institutions architecture. We need to understand this SADC, post called SADC. And all the institutions are part of SADC. We need to understand African Union and all the institutions that are there. The United Nations, your common. Why do we want to understand them? It's so that we can locate, because unfortunately, it is a crooked world. Labazalwane Laba who are leaders, they are connected through SADC, through AU, through Commonwealth, through United Nations and all that. We, the people, are not connected anymore. So how do we use the very institutions where they are to leverage our voice? We need also to understand diplomacy and diplomatic channels. In my work as an NGO activist, I have come to appreciate the constraints that are within diplomacy. Diplomats will never call out a wrongdoing. They always want to be hush-hush, and they will flaunt this issue of diplomacy. But we need also as activists to understand, how does diplomacy work? How can it work in our favor? Because sometimes I was advised by a South African diplomat one day, he said, Ndlangamandla, your megaphone, you know, diplomacy cannot work with us. We are diplomats, governed by Vienna protocols. We can't just go out and call out the king and say, you are a despot. There is need to disseminate information about the nature of the Swazi state. Every day, in our social media space, everywhere, let us disseminate the ills of society. I am in a habit every day now, when I get a newspaper, I document all the ills that are happening in this country, because they point out to a government. Because I want government to take responsibility for all the social ills that are happening. We need to make our case known why the current governance is not ideal. Issues of concentration of power in one institution, inability to enjoy our rights, such as freedom of association, conscience, information, rule of law, you name it. We are the only country now that is not allowed to elect a government. We elect an individual. And this individual gets deployed by a group of people. They are a party. We don't have a party ourselves. A party of the king. We don't have a party ourselves. We come as individuals. We need to have friends with right connections to make our case known and credible. Utsi Lomunye in the NGO space last week, Utsi, he meets President of South Africa and says, what is SADC doing about Swaziland? He says, the president said, Swazis must stand for themselves. We are on our own, literally. But, of course, there are people who may be sympathetic out there. We need to get them. The issue of the dialogue, as I draw to a conclusion, we need to continue to push for national dialogue. based on the mass democratic movement 5-point plan, an all-inclusive national political dialogue facilitated by an external authority, total and unconditional unbanning of political parties, the setting up of transitional authority, adoption of the supreme democratic constitution, introduction of multi-party democratic dispensation in our country. In conclusion, Swaziland is indeed in a crossroad. Lives have been lost and are being lost as I speak. The struggle for dignity for the majority of people is central to the change we want. His Excellency Brutus Gali wants there can be no sustainable development without promoting democracy, and thus without respecting human rights, unquote. And then Martin Luther, as I conclude, says, we must accept the finite disappointments, but never lose infinite hope, unquote. I thank you.
Two speakers, otherwise it's an open discussion. So see loyal one of the speakers, Comrade Ndlangamandla, Comrade Mphandlana, show of hand, I will call of Nakuluma. Man of Nabu, when the my editions, Mahu better something, Glumole by Kuluma. I got no more Nakuluma in my sister, my wife, Comrade Sunday.
I just want to make two comments, but touching on what both speakers have talked about. To start with, Siyabonga, Comrade Victim, on the history part. And I feel there's a lot of injustice when we look at history, because meaning in a feeling it was then in a history left false. And now I'm saying we have a false history. I honestly do not subscribe to a history. Said. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. There is no historical figure liberator live. And so kube kuya ngami ngabe sitawuba nema engagements la proper in terms of history yale live, story documenta correctly. We don't have an accurate historical record of live. Again, but what the history is that we need to understand. We also need to understand the social history of surnames. Kuti letibongo lagangwane, what is the importance and tina lipi lichaza. Ngisato ubekisa nje ngatimbili tatu. Ngiyabekisa. Kunetibongo asengithatha nje lesimple lengathi siyaswathi sonke mashwanga. Kulendlu lena I think siyavumelana ukuthi kude shift ngokamashwanga. Kude. But Shongwe ukhona, uKamdembe ukhona, awu. But what I'm trying to drive at ngale example le is that shokuthi nangabe uLswati kufanele ukuthi ube na shift wesibongo sakini. nangabe kude shift lesibongo sakini side shift officially ngale sintu uhlangana. Yes. Oh yes. So we need to understand those dynamics because letibongo ti very important. Ngoba tinetigaba lekufanele ukuthi letidlalako kule society elive. Lena nje lebekade siyongcoba khona licabane maseko. Kuka maseko vele. Mina ke ngafunda khona nase primary. Shift bekumfana wenkosi maseko. Live la kamaseko. Diningi tindzaba even asipofana nesiyathi nje ukuthi Madleni kaGametse. Live la kaGametse. Yes. So we need to begin to understand that history because it then answers the question, comrade victim, who are we? There are two surnames that are very close to the Dlaminis in terms of numerical strength. Bantu baka Shongwe ne baka Ndlangamandla. I think there's still a debate in terms of ngetinombolo ngibaphi labaningi nalabanye. I think you can add the similarities as well in the mix. Yes, labaningi ngenombolo ngidlamini, but who's number 2, number 3? Mshongwe, Ndlangamandla, Simelane.
No, sure.
Mshongwe. Where have you done that census? Why am I raising this? If we can answer that question, we can begin to understand where power lies. But it's also in the numbers of the surnames. But immediately, I'll be happy because they're already in South Africa, majority of Bala, you know. And another one before, since in Zaba, Comrade, also, there are more Dlaminis in South Africa than in Swaziland. But paradoxically, the king is here. Yes. Statistics South Africa says that every day. KZN has got more Dlaminis. I think about 3 million. They hold a million here. Yes. Yes, Mpumalanga contains more Dlaminis. So what does that tell you? Was the boundaries drawn wrong? What happened? But in Vele, South Africa contains more Dlaminis. I'm not so sure of the provinces, whether between Mpumalanga. But anyway, what Comrade, it's a comment. In Comrade, you touched on a very important thing, the issue here, Swaziland we want. Probably one of the resolutions we need to begin that document. My organization I support, more especially at MSF level. The Swaziland that we want document, please, a project because we need to agree on what future we want for everyone. Thank you, comrades.
Yes, and now Sasa Comrade Prince Comrade Sure.
Yes, as long as my presenters my comment is to check on our history on the part of Comrade team first. We might be debating in between Nama surnames and the politics that want us to limit us with the Makabulas or the Khatras or the Dlaminis or the Shongwes are from where and their history is what, the members, they are in our history, making them great and recognizing them as the true leaders of our Swaziland are. Without going deeper into the question of before law 1968, before the independence that was raped, that was proved by the Dlaminis. Swaziland had already had some agreements, both with South Africa and both with the English. Fast forwarding to today, we have seen the re-emergence of Mapun coming into our play in the scene of our country. At a time, we've lived with Mapun, who were abusing directly. Go to Tomkeke and the likes go to Bomalkens. They evict people day in and day out. It points to one thing where we would say, what is Namapun Magaham? How did they really demarcated our areas of our country? Because there is another view that Swaziland would divide the plans. Tomorrow we'll have a move. That's a disagreement. You have disagreement from law. But it's longer than one. Yeah, fine break. So we don't know to work. The past 200 years in America, the people have lived. They are getting away. But initially on paper, we have agreement. That's why also pose on the monkeys. So I think it challenges us to go back and really check what we would see. This kind, but the Comrade, the information is there. The issue of plaza and everything. But in reality, they are still coming. So we need to be ahead. Research is a poor. So I want to that's one part. But the other part is the question of the democracy that we want. I ordered the 5-point system, but assessing research about the data. I want to bet that out of 100 people that we can find, they cannot truly express the true nature of what this dialogue that we want. Yeah. So what really can we do to say an ordinary person, a shaman or whatever in the rural areas, comprehend really the call for dialogue is about what? Because now the government in a vision, because there will be democracy, but the democracy will be on the terms of the rule. And then there will be a conflict. But what if the majority of the people endorse now the democracy, the labor movement, the oppressor, rather than the alternative that we want? I think we also have to locate or also have to look on that issue. Thank you.
Presentation yesterday I sit and move along cope and move this movement so the family if not we show more close to our being then kolelo ukuthi sinensayela nasikhona khona uhlahla indlela kulomsabalazo uthi lesikwendawo ufuna sitale wakha emasu nemaqhinga ukuhlahla indlela ngoba siku-counter revolutionary phase umzabalazo uku-pushback lapho khona silingisa inyoka leshayiwe kodwa yangafi takutshela lebantu abadzala noma abantu emangweni ukuthi seyingoti kakhulu lenyoka leyo yebo ukuthi seyishayiwe but yaba nenhlanhla yangafi mhlawumbe ngana ukuthi ngishaye ngani ngishaye kanjani ayishaya kuphi bathi labatiwe ijuba uswane bathi niwa ijuba umntwana kodwa nase nishayile ijuba bonke lijubana nabonke umntwana yinja kuba busaqasaka nje bese vele kuphunywa kuphuma yonke community yoyifuna lenyoka ibulala because more dangerous now. So we counter revolutionary phase now where the regime has felt the possibilities of losing power. The regime has seen how much Swazis do not agree. agree with. But at the same time, it's been a very encouraging period where it has validated and affirmed our long-standing message that the sustainability of this country only lies with a new and democratic society. But also it has given us in an empirical evidence form once that actually a majority of Swazis agree with the call for democracy. You know, sometimes position lapho kungathi indlela asiboni ungathi kumnyama engathi lamaswati angconota kwenatha amaganu ahappy ngalamaganu nalokho konke lokunye ayivele lento democracy ayi-understand futhi akayiva futhi akahambisani nayo. I will not have blamed you to at some point in time feel like that. Yeah. But the recent politics in history has actually taught us that no, actually a majority of sources agree with the call for democracy. They actually are tired of the monarchy. Now, ngifuna ukugcina le-chairperson ngokuthi sikuphase lapho khona, like any other struggle, the regime has invoked its last tooth. All along Tinkundla betisirana nge-soft power. Yini i-soft power? Yonke system namhlabeni hayi Tinkundla kuphela uses two forms of power. It uses soft power and hard power. For the longest time, this regime has been using religion. Inkosi isithombe saNkulunkulu emkhathini wethu. Amen bazalwane. Amen. Inkosi ingubishop wabobishop. Amen bazalwane. Hallelujah. Actually, the Swazi's who honestly believe that the royal house yakholwa. Now too, when they are using religion strategically for their own advancement of their own politics and their own position. There will be people who honestly believe no wrong. Yeah. No. We are a blessed nation indeed. Lele jemlena beyirana lelive lelinge culture. Iyasibuya, isibuthanise, isigidizise, isinike amaganu, isasinathe, for 1 minute isidzakwe, sikhohlwe ngawo onke ama-sorrows ethu, escape the realities, and then present a picture to ourselves and the world of a nice, organized, happy nation. Yeah. False reality, as Comrade Ndlangamandla was saying. Now, it was also using soft power in the form of social, you know, the dancer. You dance and you say, you bushfire. So not bushfire, dance or at all material times, particularly young people, must never sit down and speak politics, which speaks to their life, must never speak about the future of their children. They must always be drinking and focusing on short-term happiness. That's why Tinkundla will sponsor my activities like Jamala. That thing is a private enterprise. But you find the regime sponsoring that thing, pushing its own multilateral structures and businesses to support it, because not only it is marketing Tinkundla global, but it is encouraging young people to be drunk and forget about realities and forget about key things in life: governance, rule of law, human rights, development, unemployment, and such like things that you can use as yardsticks of gauging the performance of the government. So, for me, the question then becomes, how do we organize where we are a Swazi that will be willing and available to push a gun-toting enemy Unfortunately, UN will not do it for us.
Yeah.
SADC will not do it for us. In fact, global politics is far hostile today than it was before. Towards the same democracy that is a chorus, towards human rights. They are walking. Go and listen to the embassies, the key so-called key embassies. On human rights, what are they saying? On democracy, what are they saying? The so-called DNA of their foreign policies. But when it comes to real action, the role of a government in modern politics is to provide a conducive environment for market. A talent that is unelected, but take key decisions in the running of the affairs of our country and the quality of life that we have or do not have in our children. So for me, Jay, we are seized with a very big question. How do we organize ourselves to challenge a regime that is using force? And using force, and there is both in terms of this and he enjoys that. In fact, it's in a symbol, where even in law, we're going to bond. The laws of apartheid South Africa did allow the possibility of the arrest of border. In Swaziland, you are in a worst case where the legal system in black and white makes it impossible for you to arrest those who take decisions, even evil as they can be. So we need to find a way of check. And I know this meeting may not be the one, but I am taking home a lot of proposals I've had. International solidarity, I agree. We need to do something to organize and coordinate the solidarity that the world seems to give on Swaziland. Otherwise, we are on our own. But at the same time, as Mphandlana likes to put it, we have an advantage. We are advocating for an idea whose time has come. As Victor Hugo, famously quoted by Mphandlana many times, would say, we are favored by time. Mphandlana's time, no matter the gunpowder that we use, it's over and it will never. It's just a question of buying time.
Yeah.
But now, how do we make sure we actually bring down this regime? And we bring down as soon as possible before too much damage is done on us, our children, and the future of our country. Mata.
Thank you, leadership. I have a question to Mr. Ndlangamandla here. I want to ask, in particular, in relation to what this comrade said about the democracy that we want or the sovereignty we want. What role can NGOs play towards the data that they collect on a daily basis, so as to say to bring about a focusing on over the country's economy, the country's social aspects and everything in between, so that it can inform a proper document towards them. And also maybe to say, as we are defining this document, let us go back to the communities and hold these sessions, these dialogues, in Mphandlana, so to say, what does Mphandlana want? In the essence, we are going to be collecting the truest of the data that we want. But at the same time, as the document as it is being written, it would also be wise to go to our organs of people's power. This includes SWADMIN, this includes SNAT and all of these organizations. For instance, when we talk about SWADMIN, the SWADMIN will inform the document in a perspective whereby it says, these are the challenges we have been facing in the health sector. We have seen this and this and this. With this data at this clinic and this hospital, collectively so, it can be used to inform the health policy of the country. As much as that is true, it will also inform, because in health there are two policies, there's a curative policy and a preventative one. So the will definitely have to inform the preventative what we need to invest into as a country in order to advance the health sector of our people. The other thing is when drafting such documents that are very critical to our development and dissemination of our country, we must also be cognizant of the fact that as much as we are writing with a democratic connotation that they want free education, but in the essence of reality, there's nothing that is for free. We must define how we're going to collect the revenue, how we're going to generate the revenue, how we're going to define the sectors that are going to inform the increase in the tax base, for instance. How we're going to define the sectors or have the sectors that are going to inform the collections in terms of corporate tax and whatsoever. So therefore, such institutions like FSCBC, the business people as organization, can also inform such. So that when we are making policies, they must be with the perspective of being sources first. In the essence of our economy, that we have been seeing that, I like what Comrade, the Vice President was saying. He is talking about the issue of the government misleading the people through religion whatsoever. He's talking about the issues of misinformation. And then we also need to, when we are going towards whatever dialogue, if it comes or it does not come, at least we must have a perspective of what is the focusing of the country, economically, politically, and otherwise. So therefore, my would be to say, as we are considering everything, let us also go back and touch base with the people of our country. Let us also go back and touch base with those institutions, in particular the religions that are in our country, because that is where the people are. So therefore, we must go to those churches, have those dialogues with the churches, define for them what was happening back then. And I also like what the Vice President was saying. He was talking about these social gatherings, why the state is sponsoring these social gatherings. If you might go back even in history, you will learn that the Greeks would hold a consortium and have gladiator ceremonies, people fighting against each other, beheading of Christians and whatsoever. And the young people will laugh, will fight amongst each other. So the issue now is not about having these social gatherings. The issue is the destruction of these young people from the real issues that are going to affect their future. So now we need to go back again towards the youth organizations in political parties, in particular the Muslim Democratic Movement. They must go and discuss how we're going to ensure that the youth is busy. The youth must not stay by the shops. The youth must find means of production for themselves. In that way, the youth will have the money to go to those gatherings, but at the same time will not be distracted by the fun of those gatherings. As much as that can be, the political parties should also, the Mass Democratic Movement, should also define and have a perspective towards gathering the people in terms of, so that they can generate income for themselves. Use something as a decoy. Some people call it a decoy dam. So in that sense, we're going to be able to drive our revolution towards a perspective that we want. Thank you.
Thank you, Comrade. Comrade, my time is not on my side, but now violently opposing view. And such to over some of this comments. Such just Lababwe Vamasik corner of Masiku. Comrade Tabine, Upalo Moy. Thank you.
Siyabonga lesesihlanu sicela kubonga nema-presentations lekentiwe. Sibonge nalama-statistics esinikwe wona kaMndlangamandla. Mina-ke kwami kokuthi ngingimake nje ngiphila la kuleli live lakwaMntwana. Leti nzinamba longathi ukhuluma ngato leti khona leti phansi la ukhulumisa bo-mob justice lesebakhona eveni lapho khona emaswati akasakholelwe tinkantolo safuna umthetho awubeke etandleni tabo. Tonke letimo letinjengaleto tibuya kumake. Nasikhulumisa ukhulumise indzaba yokuthi sisesekhona sila sima-Comrade noma sibona ukuthi siphila ngaphasi kwesibhalo. Kodwa lokusenda ukuthi sichubeke nekukhuluma into leqiniso lithando. Lokho siyakhusa kakhulu kwangathi abantu bengeke kwabaphelele. Ngoba kulesikhathi lesesibuso vele kuthi ngabantu abanethando nalabantu awubeketela. Labanye ngiyacabanga sebacalile nje ukuthi awu lebe ngibona ngathi ngase ngiyahlala ngisabonakali ngoba lesimo sesibi kakhulu. Ukhulumiseke indzaba yeke ukuthi lavele 90% simakholwa. Ngicabanga ukuthi lebe kakhulu eceleni kwami so isithashile lenzaba ukuthi kuyadingakala ukuthi siyele emabandleni ngoba vele le emasonfeni lapho kubona sithola le doctrine yokuthi kwangazuthi ngento wakulwela nokulamhlabeni salubuka lombuso waNkulunkulu wena lotala kanti lempilo yami igcile la emhlabeni nalokuhlupheka kwami ugcile la emhlabeni. Nisakhulumisa nje indzaba yeSwaziland lesiyifunayo noma nedemocracy lesiyifunayo. Siyabona phela nyalo ukuthi bomake kude lapho khona bakhona badlala chaza. Kwangathi in that document kusho kwaThomas Sankara athi there will be no true social revolution without the emancipation of women. Which nyalo labakhona tinhlangano noma they are continuously downplaying it. Can in that document lesifisile la i-emancipation yabomake ibe very key. Naloko ukuthi nasiyale emakhasi sa-define the 2001 bomake babe involved. Sikwende in simplest terms baho ekuthenini understand. Now sakhulumisa nje lo sesihlale lokhulumisa indaba ye-health system. Labanye bamangala lokho ukuthi how ngabe ngiliphelele ivele bekalisho babengamandla lokho ukuthi immortality yinkulu kakhulu ngabe kuyaswatini noma usho kulelini because basakakhona ukufika lapho babona ukuthi vele kwentekayo. Mina I'm one person lengine kwathi ukuthi na ukhuluma ukuthi uyagulelwa uthi ushayele ambulance ikutshela ukuthi eat a fuel faka imali ifakele fuel kepha wona uthela konke namalanga uselele ukuthi kube khona lokho. So kuyadinga ke lento lokuthi sithi ikhulumise lethi sifaka zethile lesesibonile le phansi emimangweni yethu but nje kakhulu bengifuna ukucela le emancipation of women ibe key on the Swaziland that we want. The patriarchal society lesibuyonyalo lesiyibona ko even in the parliament ayingabi njalo even to the democracy. That's why thina as rural women we are always calling for a feminist government. Leto khona kubeka bomake embi. Ngiyabonga sisikali.
Thank you, Comrade. Comrade Deputy Chairperson wami ngifuna ukuqosha le Brian. Ngasela sengibhalile.
Okay.
Phaka ama-comment.
Okay. Sanibonani.
Yebo.
Thank you for presentation esibona abakhona. Kwami ngisekucela mhlawumbe ukuthi sibuke as we going forward, especially that sisiplana ukuthi we must have a document lesisi mhlawumbe lebe khona letawuchaza ukuthi lesource lesifuna ngifuneka kanje. Nasithatha sibeke emqombeni ukuthi sifunze ukulesikuba kwonyaka ukuthi yes singema different political parties with different ideology. But my request would be to say nyalo lesimo lesikhona sisawe leJordan lenza bayitikipa ukuthi senjani isibulele somehow around the corner asiphile nempilo leyangane yebo wona ngeke sibone ngesonto leyana but ke sathi ukuthi lamasonto njengoba chazile babesho nababusi asafuna le lwazi ngale democracy sisaya kuyo ukuthi sayifona sifika ngale nation asikagcine bese siphila ngaphansi kwetikipa sigcubele amabhalet wayana asiphile ezwa
And I'm challenging the umbrella bodies that call PPA na MSF. Those umbrella bodies must take a lead into that. Azame ukusibamba sibe ngoku. Siyele most of the philosophies, then come back. Then you go back to our keeper, go back to our put. Because if we see now, today we have this lecture, a very, very good lecture. It's pure. It's been advertised pure without any branding and everything. Inviting sources. Guess what? They say Mphandlana. And majority of us, I guess, put it. I guess. So we need to take that. It's okay. So we need a value. So my person fluent, but that's couple bamba, tie and push. Because aside move for us to follow. As I say, move for us, as I do my other. Thank you.
Comrade.
yazi isuggestion bekuyokuthi kufuna ukuba lapho besovule emanje besovule umsebe uyabanikeza for that direction ukuthi hayi mina ngibona ukuthi afuneka ngisapotha kakhulu ngibafundisa kuqala nasibafundise kubanikeza direction yesinye isikhathi uvama lesinye isikhathi bakhona sale sibamba space sisifundisa ukuthi sikhwishise tracking ukuthi ngakusiphi yesinye isikhathi kwenteka anything abasoneli baphela ngibuye ngithi since ngeke sibize kuna uma ngeke bazoba phansi labo manje ababani uma ngibona uma ngeke baqasaba over 100 ababathe namba donsa nesiname nabo mkhaya bathi awubukuswente bathi ufike masipala waphithita namaphaleti ebusuku awubona amaphaleti abo labadela kuwo labo manje kunamhla labathi bona ubakhanza bathi kodwa lethi mvuleni nabo bonke masipala wabulala amaphaleti wathi abakhweshi lapha nyalo ubalekeke for anini bebana for malama uthi nabasebenze for 2 days bayarenta abenta bonke labo lomfundise ngabo kakhulu wekuthi ngitshela labantu hambani le masipala niyokhala futhi nihambe nonke ningasathi mina le community yebo labo manje bathi ngathi izingoma zabalazo lezi ayihlangahlangana abantu namthisha ungaledi nombolo lesingathi khona nanathi ukuthi labantu abathi kanje educator embafika lenyanga saye bomake nje bababuthela bomake babakhona namhlanje abakhona nanyana masipala sokulwa nabo wekuthi labo bantu abantu baswele emakhaya ababuthi bomake wena ukhulume nepolitiki lenganalabo mangalazi sokujulela khona ukuthi abadala nabo yathi kanjani sekwenza kanjani wenkulume lesimo lababhekene naso ukuthi lokho akafanele emasipala ukuthi angakwenza abulale ngaphandle kwekhulumisana noma amxoshe nyalo ukuthi bhekani uphinyana yesemsebenzi labo manje ngiyakuthi sesikhathi ngala sebenza bathi over 18 years sobasebenza ngoba basuka leNdasi eBosco then babitwa amasipala bathi ngakhulunye la ngithi bomake basemakhaya then abakakhona ngifunza labanye nakahle thine bengizenzile mina umake ngokungaba kanjani nibenikwazi bomake nicele labantu babenu ngengibafundisile abahlala singisi lesibulela kakhulu ukuthi abantu babenza isipleti lesiyapha masipala ngaleso sikhathi ke thine sitawuduka ke tukipa sonke siye khona lapha siyothi on behalf of nabatali bethu sobalalelisisa thine sebula ngakho kuba ukuthi seyindlela leyo kwanyalo sokubathi Comrade 15 besijijala ijatulo mathayini lithi gogogo etwesitha sakho stabe sesiyabona ukuthi senza kanjani bengicabanga ukuthi mina ama-comrades nabo lonye indlela yokufundiseka singabalahla kuma-ke baningi akunathi over 100 abantu nabakuta
Mandla ngithi hayi noyevakala waxabana otherwise ngicabanga ukuthi asibonge ama-comrades esifike emaphethelweni ngidawunika ama-speakers ethu nomabili akocote nje kafishane ngoba vele lokuningi lokuma-comment ngicala ngale Comrade Ndlangamandla bese ngigcina Comrade 15.
Asibonge comrades. I think mine bengivelahle mina indzaba yama-NGOs ngicabanga ukuthi Comrade vele ama-NGOs angasisita ngedatha lokuthi si-informe le document yethu nasisayisebenta kulula lokuthi siba bring on board ngaleskhathi ngokubona ama-consultations singasebenzisa kulula kulabo abasebenza ama-communities sibasheshe bakhulume nebantu ngoba nyalo nawuqhamuka nje umusha enzaweni bafuna ukethule nawo konke lokho so funeka ukuthi ukusebenzise nabantu benzayo ukuthi sikhona ukuthi sende le documents ngoba mina nje lekithi kamabona bulawa ngeke bangikude namhlangana nebantu ukuthi ngakuphi ngoba bangadinga khona ekhaya ngicabanga ukuthi lokunye I think insaya lenkulu lashiye yona Deputy President umzaba wokuthi njengoba lo hulumende nyalo asasebenza ngesibhamu sifanele kusisende njani mina ke ngiyangithanze ukuthi ngiyangikhuthade ukuthi ngibuke kulabanye lo mzabalazo wethu lona kwahluki kunalabo baseSudan who are facing guns every day but they still march forward so kufanele sifunze kule minye imizabalazo lekhona sibone ukuthi bona benda njani emiyami even today the brutal regime yemasotsha but they are not giving up. They are still standing up. They are still of course they are still being shot and killed. Kufanele ukuthi sithole lena ngoba I think once the mission yakho ye change yaba clear indzaba yesibhamu iba minimal awusabuki lesibhamu ubukele vision lo yakho ulembi la uyakhona so ngicabanga ukuthi we need ingakho le information is very important kusifaka energy yokuthi we march forward ngoba laba bafuna kusibambelela ngoba bayabona ukuthi isikhathi sabo siphelile manje ngokuthi ba straighten nje njoba nibona nje ukuthi bantu they are charged ngema-terrorism charges nami nje ngasi ngiphuma lapha ngibe ngigcwele emaphepheni ukuthi ngifuna kubulala bondunankulu ngifuna kubulala nenkosi I mean batawuphikiswa ngubani inkantolo ngetabo konke ngokwabo so vele kumadima but siyathi ukuthi all oppressive regimes they've used these tactics but they've never succeeded ukuthi bakhwenshe i-desire yabantu to march forward. Thank you.
Comrade Chair, much has been said and a lot were just comments, but there are few issues which are correct, which we must be able to understand. First, the issue of our history. I was, Sandile was here talking about the history at which is fake and false. Yes, that is correct, Comrade. We live in a false, fake history. A history, Comrade, is written by people through their own perspective and understanding. Unless and until you write your own history, you will continue to be misrepresented by Hilda Cooper or any other person. And what does this mean calls for? It calls for people must start writing their own history. The history in this country, some about 8 years ago, where it was talking about Mphandlana, it was talking about Bopudem. And guess what happened? The authorities of the country decided to remove that history from the curriculum and left blank pages, which I don't think history does allow blank pages. Nevertheless, those who will come after us will be able, Comrade Ndlangamandla, to write our history. The historyless now is the wrong one. Let's say, kubinzwa kubona, ubothula utaba munzi, tiboke setwete. That is why we are in this mess. A lot of things sitibonile tendeka. Swabinza nje because ngeke kufanane nabo Mphandlana ukhulumele futhi. You see, this is the kind of history comment lengicabanga ukuthi lapho singayi esimele sibukele. Correct. The whole of Swaziland community is a farm. It's a farmland. Those pieces of land which you may see under Swazi Nation land are the lands that are not arable. The good lands remains in private lands, which, by the way, when 1884 during the Berlin Conference, that was where everything went wrong, Comrade. You are correct, Comrade. Until and unless in a new Swaziland we sit down and demarcate. What do we see today? What do we have today are not borders, by the way. These were just man-made foot and mouth boundaries which came at that time. There was never any expectation where boundaries were marked that yes, South Africa, yes, this. Yes, we are correct. We still need that. But first, before that, we must attain the powers, the freedoms to do that. Now, where do we go from here, as Comrade Ndlangamandla was trying to find out? Comrade, we are beginning a conversation today which can take us about a few months, a few weeks, to seriously think about this. It is not something that it is something that we must seriously think about this. Are you aware what's in Swaziland, in our struggle? We are short of thinkers. The Comrade is an activist. The Comrade there was an activist. Everybody went down. But where are those who think? The whole day you must think. We don't have thinkers. We have activists. I'm an activist myself. I don't have time to think. Where are the people to think and bring the ideas? As activists, Comrade, correct. But what do we do with those people? We drag them, we push them, we pull them. We have no any other alternative. But we must think before we do that. That is why Nelson Mandela says, it is only when you reach the top of the mountain that you discover there are more mountains to climb. But before you climb that other mountain, you must descend. Right now, at the crossroads, we are descending. Tulane is dead. We are descending. You can tell the enemy thinks we are dead. But fate, as fate, we have to descend in order to ascend to the other mountain. We might have this school, this political school, which we are beginning today. We will take about 6 consecutive rounds of thinking. Today it was the first session. Let us think. Next week, we don't want to be Mphandlana Emmanuel here. Who else can be here? Because the problem here is we depend too much on recycling ourselves.
Yeah.
We depend too much on the victims of the day that will organize such. Comrade Mchali comes from Mdobandova. Mdobandova is a densely populated area. When are we taking this session to Mdobandova? Led by him, not by me. I think this is what Comrade Ndlangamandla was saying. Now, in conclusion, Comrade, you are correct that Comrade was next to you. You are correct, Comrade. But most of the things, let us give ourselves time to think. Now, maybe before Lucky closes, it would be prudent that we think about the next move. What is it that we want to think about? You see, Comrade here has just said, which one did I say there? In between us, there's gunpowder and freedom. We have to cross this gunpowder.
Yeah.
We don't have any arms, but to cross this gunpowder. And who is going to cross this gunpowder, Comrade? It is that, Comrade, the youngest. Today, history is being made in this house. The youngest Comrade here is less than 5 months, if I'm not mistaken. She must be 2 or 3. Yeah. That Comrade must cross that gunpowder.
Yeah.
Sina tendency lembi rasta. Samba solwela abantu i-free education sishiyele umntana lekhaya. Kanti ngubani lo fanele ayothola le free education? Ngoba somshiyele ekhaya, samba solwela nami ukuthi abamfakele imali lo muntu lomdzala, umshiyele ekhaya ngalolu bhoko. Kanti amaphoyisa afuna ashaye bani la? Kanti thiya gestan funa ishaye bani kumbe? Sina siyakhona thina kuyothi simelane nalokukhulu, but we spare others. Comrade, what is happening in Peru? Are you aware what is happening in Peru? The masses are valid in shifts. Awunofika uthi kithi asambe solekele labo boto papas. Boto papas, they have powers there. People must learn to fight their own struggles. That is the liberation. Sibe liberated. By the way, Comrade, this is we have to think of, this must be taught. I am I said it before that I am very proud to have Comrade Ndlangamandla here to share with him this forum, and I wish, Comrade, that what we are starting today goes on and goes to history. That we will be thinking from now, and we are inviting any person interested in thinking. We want to think before we act. In those words, Comrade, I will allow Comrade Lucky to close for us, and we like to thank Comrade Abigail there, who came with that under 5, not under 5 years, under 3 months who was here. This is a history today, Comrade, that we will not betray that, Comrade. We will always remember that the struggle stands on the shoulders of those comrades, the little ones, the unborn, those ones who are still to come here. Comrade.
Thank you, Comrade. Sibonga kakhulu lokuthatha leli thuba sitelana sikhulumisana. Kude program noma ene plan lengaphuma singakakhulumisana sacabanga. Whatever view, whatever suggestion, whatever comments, it matters. Alekufuna understand singabi hopeless. Any country all over the world has never been changed by a majority. It is changed by a minority. Resolute. Leyakiwa ukuthi and nifuna kanjani. Lokunye lekufuna understand laza khona nama conditions akakhiwa ngithi. Akhiwa ngokugcilana. So we must understand ukuthi kukhona indlela lesengakito utenda kuzabalana nasizabalaza. Lekufuna sithi understand ukuthi lo 2021 kutanyanga letinyanga lesikito yini lesikufunzile. What is the takeaway ukuthi yini lesikufuna sikuthathe sikwele ukuze sisala sifika enkululeko nemaswati, because we can't repeating the same mistake that we did before 2021. But from the 2021 June massacre until this moment, yilo kusibimbile sangangena enkululekweni sansarisha lokho, then we will be able to provide the correct strategy and tactics and take power. Comrade Maswati are ready, but Maswati ngeke alandzele umuntu lo weak. Maswati now Ndlangamandla memkhatsini. Maswati nakabona ukuthi ba strong ngala ngakhona, that's why besenjetwa ama-audio so shutdown bahlale bantu emakhaya. Nawabuya lona shaya sebetanga bona satshwana. So we must understand the dynamics ukuthi bantu balandzela umuntu strong. Ngeke ke sibakhulule Comrade kuba soft. At some point in time we will need to be decisive. Whatever action that we take, we must be ready to pay with the highest price so that we gain our freedom. Comrade, lamanye mava kafike ngoba bekathanda la kafika khona. Afike because they understood that the only language that the oppressor can listen to is some other means. Comrade, ngalawa mafishane siyabonga kakhulu. Let us go back and mobilize, and agitate, and educate Amaswati Lamaneng. No, who said losing? It's a fight. It's a 50-50 now. But anyone who continuously, persistently pushing and consistent, or the consistency later end out to see no. If we start push again, start pass, then staba look till that start less. Mala ola mafishana Comrade siyabonga kakhulu Comrade ulokule nisinike ngona namhla unengile sikufunzile unengile sataya sokuhlathi emakhaya Mandla forward party democracy forward
sorry man off record